Hi everybody, Ryan Ballengee with Golf News Net here, back to tell you about some new golf clubs we've got in the mail and have just been announced by the good folks at Wilson Golf. So, a couple of years ago, they came out with a new iron, and it was called the C300 irons, and it was an aggressive look. And what they did to make it so aggressive was they created something called the flex face, FLX face, and what was called power hole technology. And with this, they drilled or created a variety of holes that went around the perimeter of the face of the club, basically where the face met the body of the iron, and they filled those holes with urethane polymer. And what they did that for was to create fewer connection points between the face and the body, so that the face could, as the technology name implies, flex better, so that no matter where you hit the ball on the face, you would get maximum distance because the face would be able to flex to conform as best as possible to the kind of strike that you made. And the look was a little bit controversial. The irons were long, they were a good product, but they were controversial in the sense that a number of golfers didn't like the way that the power holes looked. They thought that they were particularly distracting on the top line. Obviously you didn't see them really on the toe or the sole of the club, but it was enough to be distracting on the top line that it maybe turned some golfers off. However, what Wilson decided with their C300 line was not to get rid of flex face technology in the power holes, but rather enhance it in one model and create another model which didn't really have the same kind of look but still had power hole technology. So they came out with the C300 line, which is now available for pre-order, and the C300 irons have power holes in them. And they have them not only on the sole, but they have now 2 rows on the sole. And, of course, they have the power holes along the top line again. However, what they decided to do was come out with a second set. And that's the set that we have in hand here. These are the C300 Forged irons. And the difference between this and the C300 irons, well, there are several. First, there are no power holes on the top line. So what the folks at Wilson realized is that golfers like me who are a low handicap player, or golfers maybe like you who are kind of in that 7 or 8 range to up around 20, that maybe you're a good golfer, maybe you don't get out a lot, you've got talent but you don't get out a lot, so you don't score as well, or you play frequently enough and you want some more distance. And there's a more broadening set of options for players in that category that are strike the ball pretty well and want more distance, but they don't want something that offends their senses. So what Wilson decided was they would come out with the C300 Forged, and there would be no power holes on the top. So that way you wouldn't see it. But you would still have power holes on the bottom. So, hence, on the sole of the C300 Forged, you have 2 rows of power holes like you would get in the C300 standard irons. There are a couple of differences, however. First, the shape of the power holes and the alignment of them are a little bit different in the C300 than you would see in the C300 Forged. And that's partially a result of the different material used. So, in the C300 irons, they went with 17-4 stainless steel. That makes it a little bit easier to make thinner and manipulate more so that they could put as little of the face as possible connected to the body, and that they could kind of drill the type of power holes that they wanted all around the perimeter, and then that secondary row behind the first row on the sole of the club. With these guys, the C300 Forged, this is 8620 carbon steel. This is the same carbon steel from which the FG Tour V6s are forged. That's the iron I've used throughout 2017 and have fallen in love with, partially to my shock, but also much to my delight. And they needed to use that because if they're going to do this in a forging process, then they wanted to create the feel for the better player, the more discerning player, that they would be getting an iron that felt good, that felt like something they would want to play, that felt crisp, that had the expectations that they could deliver on that people like me who want to play forged irons would expect to have in an iron. And so using that material, the 8620 carbon steel, that made it impossible for the folks at Wilson to do the same amount of power holes. So they decided to keep them on the toe and on the sole and eliminate them on the top line. So that's what they chose to do for these C300 forged irons. In terms of looks, obviously it's a very clean look. Somewhat inspired, I think, by the FG Tour V6s. And this is actually true of the C300s. The C200s were a lot more aggressive in terms of coloring. They kind of had a black badging with red color scheme, obviously, to kind of match the black power holes a little bit. This is different. This is more clean badging. This is something that you would kind of expect to see in a player's iron, and you see in both models, which I like. And it's a little bit more muted, which I'm not a big fan of busy badging. That's just how I feel about it. Then again, when you swing an iron, you usually don't look at it. And if you put this iron down and you look at it over the ball, you won't see the badging at all anyway. Also, you won't see the power holes on the toe. So this is a distraction-free club. That's kind of the design. The lofts on these are a little bit, we would say, jacked, but they're a little bit reduced by a couple of degrees relative to the FG Tour V5s, which is, this is kind of the replacement for. And that's in part for a variety of reasons, and we can talk in a different video about what loft jacking is and what all of that means and how 6-iron isn't the same as another 6-iron. The bottom line is, nowadays it's more difficult than ever to discern what is a 6-iron and what is a 6-iron from somebody else. Because lofts are different, lengths are different, all kinds of different engineering points are different. So some irons are designed to go sky high because of their low and back CG. Some are designed for a more penetrating ball flight. Some are designed to be expressly consistent in their length, and they're designed for better players, so the loft doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether the better player hits a 6-iron 180 or 190. It matters that it goes that distance every time when they need it to. So it's hard to compare from iron to iron, but from set to set, in the Wilson family, these lofts are a little bit stronger. There's nothing wrong with that inherently. It's just something you need to know when you're trying to make a cross-brand comparison. That said, if you kind of laid down the FG Tour V6s and these side by side, the top line doesn't look really that much thicker on the C300 Forged than the V6s. That's a plus for me. For someone who doesn't like a thick top line, doesn't feel like I want to be hitting a wood on an iron length head, an iron length shaft, basically. You don't get that impression here. Obviously, the power holes being missing is something that I like as a better player, although I didn't find them particularly distracting on the C200 irons for what that's worth. And I always like the clean Wilson design. I just like the way they deliver the numbers. They're nice and big. They're classic looking. They're not gaudy, which is something I kind of find offensive about certain irons. I kind of want my irons to look like they're irons. Like they're not, again, wood's on a shorter stick. And so I think you can get that with the C300 Forge. If you're a player who really wants to get that full distance gain of the regular C300, I think you just have to try it for yourself. That's what I would always say about any iron that you find visually captivating. Go try it for yourself. Go see how it looks when you stand over it, not when I'm standing over it. Give it a look and see if you find it distracting. What I found with the C200s was that after 4 or 5 swings, I didn't think about it anymore. It was new normal, and all systems were go. Obviously, wouldn't have that problem with the C300s. We're going to take these out. We're actually heading out to San Diego in a week, and we're going to be trying these for the first time. So we'll come back with a review on them. And I kind of get the feeling we might get a couple of extra yards against the FG Tour V6s. Those aren't the longest irons in the world, but again, I love them because they're very consistent. So we'll see if these are consistent and long, or what they turn out to be. And we'll throw them on the Mevo as well to give you a sense of some spin numbers that go along with it, give you some numbers to back up our intuitions. But these C300 irons, the Forged and the original, also pair with the new C300 driver, fairway woods, and hybrids. All of those have power holes. All of those come in a matte red finish. That's a different video for another time. But if you were looking for a full set of C300s, you could go all the way through the bag, at least until you get to the wedges, and play this line of clubs. So head over to wilsongolf.com, check them out. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Be sure to, as always, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.